First off, I want to note that this episode is me reading a written monologue. It is composed of various thoughts and ideas I have had recently regarding the podcast, as well as Grindworks in general. I'm just kidding. I can do way better than that while reading, but I figured I'd start with the joke just because it's kind of funny and hopefully, I've given myself enough context clues to make this feel as fluid as possible. We're going to find out. So, I've had various ideas running through my mind countless times lately and decided that it would work out best for me and you as listeners for me to refine these ideas and thoughts into a semi coherent form and then. I'd read it to you afterwards. And I figured that would be the best way to do this. And I'm going to kind of ad lib it a little bit, which may break my flow worse than if I just read through it. But it's just kind of the way that I like to roll with these. So I've never done a solo cast before, as most of you will know. So we're winging it. Anyway, the agenda is going to be 1, what's up with Grindworks, 2, 2020 jams, and 3 is the GrindWorks DVD Project. It's been brought up a couple of times. I figured I'd just update everyone with what's going on. Okay. So, let's get started with Grindworks in general. I think most of you know who I am at this point, but I'm going to assume that you don't. My name is Andrew Vargason. I'm 32 years old from Vestal, New York, and living just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Most people call me AV for short. That has not carried from New York to PA, and the consensus here seems to just be Andy. I don't really care either way, and I'll answer to just about anything. So, just kind of general context there. I started Grindworks with 2 of my good friends, Cameron Turan and Sam Schragi. Both of them have been on the show previously. I started it after breaking my ankle/leg on September 29th, 2013. So that date always sticks with me. So I figured I'd share the specifics. Grindworks was officially started about a week after this when I had returned home from the hospital and met with Cam and Sam. I designed the first peg, the foundation peg, pretty much right away and used some connections I had through work to get them made. We kept everything pretty hush-hush until we had the product in hand to drop. It's always bothered me when people talk about doing something and building a brand or company or whatever they say they're gonna do, but they never execute it. So we decided to keep it under wraps for a couple of reasons. One being that if something did fall through, that we wouldn't fall into the group that I just mentioned in my last sentence. The second being that there wouldn't even be any time for it to be a question. Frankly, by the time you find out anything, we already did it. We're not going to do it. So that was kind of the gist on that one. Almost as quick as it started, Sam became a non-contributing member of the group, and that's been discussed. I don't think ever in like the full details of what happened, but Sam became a non-contributing member of the group, but will always be considered one of the founders and is still actively involved when it comes to helping out with promotion. Cam has taken a progressively backseat role while I have steered the ship and become essentially the face of Grindworks. I'm not sure, but I may have created this scenario by being a little bit narrow-minded as far as what we were trying to convey imagery-wise, brand-wise, product-wise. I still feel very strongly that we should avoid anything that we deem gimmicky and that we all collectively consider to be lame. That does have kind of a caveat of who am I to decide what's lame, and just because I think something's lame Doesn't mean that someone either looking at the product, listening to this right now, or who knows when or where might consider it awesome. So uh, I shouldn't really judge things that critically because, again, just because I consider it lame doesn't mean someone else doesn't think it's awesome. But either way, that's kind of the stance we've taken. Um, I was handling a large majority of GrindWorks when Cam and I lived about 5 miles away from one another. And now that we are 300 plus miles apart, the balance almost had to further shift in my direction. Since I handle the online store, sourcing the pegs, which now they're made in Pittsburgh as opposed to the original manufacturer when I was in New York. Um, our original goal with all of this was to be the best peg company out there. And in my mind, and anyone who has ridden our pegs, we are, hands down. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. So, the only catch is, I don't believe that we fit the definition of a company. And I've debated this endlessly myself, with other people, and even on previous episodes of this podcast. So, GrindWorks is many things. We are a crew. We are a podcast, obviously. Social media pages, peg dealer, etc. But I don't believe we're a company. And companies have clear intentions of delivering a product or service in exchange for monetary gains, i.e., profit. And GrindWorks, from its inception, has just shunned that mentality. I mean, I guess I'll get into that further, but we've never been about profit. So we started out bored while I had a broken ankle, and we were dissatisfied with the current offerings of pegs and BMX at the time. So for metal pegs, you had Shadow Little Ones, which, in my opinion, are too short, too thin, and too soft to compete with the plastic peg market. Or you had Odyssey JPEGs, which are good, but still, I'm going to say on the too soft side. They can be better. You know, everything can be better. Our pegs can be better too, but for various reasons. And I'm not actually going to get into those at the moment. Anyway, I got to work testing and confirming my suspicions regarding some of the pegs available on the market, and they are either substandard material, poorly heat treated, or machined from pre-hardened material. Substandard material sounds worse than it is. While it can mean straight up counterfeit material where a vendor tries to pass one material off as another, either to make more money off of it, or to substitute in order to meet a delivery time. It can also be just, the same side of that, the replacement to cover a substitution to cover a delivery time, a replacement to cover up a defect, or maybe supplied incorrectly without the knowledge of the mistake. Most times, substandard material refers to the material mostly being what they claim it to be, and ASTM, AISI, SAE, and others all have designations and specifications for what constitutes specific materials and define unambiguous acceptance criteria. So when all of the acceptance criteria are met, the material is certified as being the stated material. JIS and ISO standards may deviate from one another on acceptance criteria, and usually only slightly. Many materials are deemed acceptable through equivalency, and a product designed in the USA may call for 4140 chromoly steel, but may be provided as 40 CR1 MO28, or other various similar material callouts. which is a relatively equivalent steel typically produced overseas. These specifications typically define the processing controls too, from casting, forging, hot rolling, cold rolling, any uh, processing control that they would apply to that. So even certain grades, one might be hot rolled, one might be cold rolled, or one might be forged and the other might be cold rolled. So really, until you look into the specs, like, yes, chemically they may be equivalent, but processing wise they may not be. Heat treatment determines the grain and crystalline structure of the material. So mostly when you think of heat treating, you'll hear it referred to as hardness, and that is the most easily verifiable property after heat treatment, specifically in steels. That is not actually the case for aluminum. However, heat treatment is a generic word that has a variety of meanings. Kind of answer a couple of them for you, really high level here. Annealing or normalizing is a heat treatment when the material is completely stress relieved and returned to a dead soft condition. So, if you've done anything to it and you need to return it to just completely malleable and soft, that's what you would do. Quenching in oil or water, depending on the type of material and grades, is a hardening process and improves the tensile strength, increases hardness, and makes the material more brittle. Tempering is used to partially soften quenched material back to a desired strength or hardness. So stress relieving is commonly known as BMX as post-weld heat treatment, and it's a tempering process used to alleviate the material being too hard or brittle in the affected heat affected zones of welds and return the material to its pre-welded or desired condition. So that's a lot of info there. I'm going to stop that discussion right there, and if you want to continue into that, you can research different materials on MatWeb, MATWEB, or start looking into some material science textbooks. I may have gotten a couple of little details right or wrong in there. I'm not really here to debate the semantics of it, but you can look all that stuff up on your own. But I'm pretty sure that I got it all right. So basically, many pegs are from pre-hard material, which is readily available and has been supplied heat treated to within a liberal range for production purposes. Pre-hard material is still fairly machinable, which means it's still soft enough to cut. When machining pegs or anything from pre-hardened material, you typically eliminate the need to heat treat after machining, and this typically saves time and money. But it sacrifices the control and quality of the overall peg. My hardness tests that I had done on other pegs all showed results around 25 Rockwell C, which is pretty much the lower end of the pre-hard spectrum. I believe it's typically like 25 to 30, 25 to 32. It can be any of those. Obviously, I had limited stock to test as I don't have unlimited funds, but it was enough to determine that it's highly probable that everyone else is using pre-hard material. And in complete transparency, we've tried that too, and it doesn't work good. Making our pegs from annealed and cold drawn 4140 in the USA takes a lot of the above factors away. We are heat treating the pegs in accordance with controlled procedures in calibrated ovens. Hardness testing confirms that the heat treatment was successful and that the pegs are ready for grinding. I'm not telling you what we heat treat our pegs to, but I can tell you it's higher than pre-hard. Anyway, the whole intention of going into any level of detail was to validate my too short, too thin, and too soft claim. You see, when we go way back, we all had good metal pegs that slid great. So what changed? The bottom line is weight. When bikes became lighter, pegs had to get thinner and thinner. Pretty much logical, right? When pegs get too thin, they start denting and or flexing when you land on a rail or ledge. When this happens, you aren't grinding as fast and as smoothly as you could be. It's a simple conservation of energy problem. Your energy either translates forward into a grind or is absorbed by the bending, denting, or flexing of the peg. Furthermore, ugh, jumbled that word. Let's start that one over again. Furthermore, in our opinion, pegs are one of the only parts you can put on your bike with the sole intention of being bashed, smashed, abused, and beat up. They should be built well enough to take that beating without having to replace them every month. That's why we created the foundation and streetlight pegs, so we can enjoy fast grinds and long-lasting, reliable pegs. In order to make them affordable, we had to order them in a large batch, so of course we had to start selling them. We have not done any plastic pegs because there are plenty of viable options for you already if you want plastic. I can list off a handful, but I'm not going to, of perfectly good plastic pegs. There's zero reason for me to make one if you want that type of thing. Which brings up a fun side discussion that everyone thinks we hate plastic pegs. We clown on them a little bit, but that's because we all prefer metal pegs. So, no hate there. If you want plastic pegs, you can find perfectly good ones out there. If you want metal pegs, you're probably going to want ours. That's because we know our pegs are the best metal pegs available. So, none of this was intended to be an advertisement for GrindWorks, even though it is our podcast. And I'll shamelessly say that you can buy any of this stuff on our website right now at www.grindworksbmx.com. But really, it was brought up to explain how we came to making pegs in the first place and why we continue to make pegs. Even though we make and sell a product, our goal has shifted. My vision for GrindWorks is to be scene oriented. GrindWorks is my means of doing cool stuff for and with my hometown scene in Binghamton, scene here in Pittsburgh, and any other scenes that we may be able to make an impact in. I can't think of anyone specifically, but I know that I've been involved in a couple of small jams in Ohio and some other stuff around the country, whether it's just sending some product out or whatnot, or able to make it there. So I think that's a real thing. Peg sales do help us keep doing cool things like throwing jams. So a lot of people will do t-shirts or something and whatnot, but like I said, in order for us to make pegs that we liked for ourselves, we had to get them in batches. So here we are. I also think it's a little bit unfair to all the people that support GrindWorks for it to be considered a company. When you are riding our pegs, or whether you're riding our pegs or not, if you're down with us, you're probably a part of the crew in some capacity. And companies have sponsored riders. Not always, but often get paid or compensated in some fashion. And crews typically rep something for the love. And it's kind of a gray area sometimes, but we have never been able to sponsor people because we have always chosen to sponsor events and in turn scenes. I feel like I went on a tangent there, but I promise that I was building you up to the discussion I'm about to phase into. So, through all of the history, going on 7 years now, I have somehow become the face of GrindWorks. Although I will admit that it's somewhat by design and somewhat just by circumstance. Obviously, as I mentioned before, I take a lot of control of some stuff, and also just in what I deem cool and what we're going to do in that regard. So, somewhat by design, somewhat by circumstance. With that in mind, I have managed all of our social media presence, some of them well, such as our Instagram, Facebook, and our website, and some of them not so well, such as our Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, which is too new to really have a good comment there anyway. But in an effort to be in constant contact and remain completely accessible, everything I have touched in the last 6.5 years has been branded with GrindWorks on it. Myself and Tyler Kramer had the GrindWorks Ice House, which was a private DIY that we started and maintained for a year and a half. I started the podcast and branded it GrindWorks, which opened up more channels of social media to maintain, a YouTube channel, an Anchor channel, which pushes us to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a whole bunch of other podcast platforms that you've probably never heard of. We've teetered on and off from being a hub for random videos on the website, although I always shy away from it for a variety of reasons that I don't necessarily want to dive into right now, but the bottom line is we aren't the come up. And I also changed my Xbox gamer tag and Steam account to GrindWorks BMX, and this was in an effort to seamlessly tie everything together and basically improve accessibility to customers. The thought being, like, how cool is it that you can jump in a party chat or game with us? And then I started streaming some of the games on Mixer with the hopes of eventually streaming the podcast as well. We've streamed. Oh, excuse me. That's better. Okay, we've streamed things like Pipe by BMX Streets, and done some live games of bike on there. And then we have done a couple of, I think we call them socially distanced podcasts, and they were just live streams. One of them went well. The second one, I don't even think I posted. So this all seems great. And it was, but let me run something by you that I never really considered. What do you do when your core audience starts to shift based on some of these decisions? For example, through game streaming, I've gained a whole bunch of followers that I otherwise never would have. And I consider some of these people pretty good friends, and we like to keep up on what each other are up to, regardless of the topics. So, like, this is really cool, right? On the other hand, if I use my Mixer account to broadcast a podcast live, my primary follower base on there is confused and doesn't care about what we're doing. Furthermore, if I try to promote and grow the stream channel, I can't tie these accounts back together on Instagram because the primary, and I'm going to say most important follower base is BMX riders. So while some of them may not care or may be down to check out some gaming clips now and then, they're not looking to GrindWorks BMX to provide that entertainment for them, and nor should they. So I've got a disconnect. GrindWorks is stretched to my identity, so I can't necessarily shake it, and nor do I want to. But with so many irons in the fire and things I have going on that sometimes align and sometimes don't, I need to start separating some of these projects. My glasses are fogging up as I'm trying to read here, so give me 2 seconds. I already had to put the goofy ones on because the light was glaring so badly off my other ones, and I know it's still doing it off these, but not nearly as bad. Alright, where was I? So, okay, I need to start separating some of these projects, even if just slightly. I think it's in the best interest of both myself, the listeners, the followers, and probably the Grindworks branding in general. So, um, I don't have a clear cut idea of what that is yet, but I'm going to kind of kick some ideas around here. This could also include merging some projects and ending others that have been kept separate. I know only a handful of people knew this until we mentioned it in episode 37. But the Pole Jams 2 account on Instagram, which was started after the original at Pole Jams account was laid to rest, we formally took ownership of the Pole Jams 2 account last year prior to our jams. They sponsored the jam, threw some stickers our way. But the reality is, we took ownership of the account to make that happen. So, is what it is. We have continued to operate it as a separate account for a handful of reasons. Mostly the allure of anonymity and the unaffiliated nature of the account. So, um, Grindworks has always posted Pole Jam clips too whenever we find them sick. And as Pole Jams 2 grows, it potentially harms Grindworks, right? Like, we're not directing traffic to our page with a topic that we do commonly share, and potentially harms our events that we host or promote, because an entire subsection of our following is disengaged from Grindworks BMX. And I've got mixed feelings on that. So, on one hand, I think it's stupid. On the other, merging Pole Jams 2 into Grindworks BMX and discontinuing Pole Jams 2 may make sense for us, but it would harm the integrity of reposting Pole Jam clips. My example for that is, let's say that Cult puts up a sick clip and we repost it on Pole Jams 2. Everyone's stoked, right? Hey, this random Pole Jams account was stoked on the clip we posted. The rider's stoked. The company's stoked because they're getting a little bit of shine time, blah, blah, blah. Now, if that same post got reshared to Grindworks, there's a little bit of a conflict of interest. So, there's reluctance to promote another brand, for one, assuming that we consider ourselves a company. But there's the other side of that, which is for their content to essentially be promoting Grindworks and us using it as our own promo tool. So, once that's said out loud, I think it becomes more clear as to why it needs to stay a separate account. And that's fine. And that's probably what's going to happen. It's right now it gets used pretty sporadically anyway, because as you'll learn in a second, I don't have the time to do it. Other accounts that we manage, such as Dolphin Rodeo, at Dolphin Rodeo, while it's a funny account and I really do enjoy posting on it, it's somewhat unnecessary and it provides little to no relevance to Grindworks. Aside from the occasional BMX post. Dolphin Rodeo started on a trip from Pittsburgh back to Binghamton with a small crew of dudes from here. I'm going to probably miss someone, but I believe it was Brad Gibbs, Cam Gervin, maybe Mikey Zalis, Josh Geyer, and I feel bad, but I can't remember Nate's last name, and myself. I think that's everyone, but I really don't remember. I have a photo. Anyway, we went up to Binghamton for, I think, the FBM 21st birthday party at HCS. And then while we were at Sherry Lindsay the following day, someone pointed out the mural on the wall of a person riding a dolphin. So, hence the name Dolphin Rodeo. We took a group photo in front of it, and that was that. Originally, that was the joke. So then we kind of came up with like, let's run with it and find pictures of people riding dolphins all over the place. They're slightly harder to come by than you would think, but they're usually pretty good. Check the page; it's pretty funny. We took a group photo in front of it. I already said that. I already use this account very sporadically, probably more sporadic than Pole Jams because I at least try to maintain that one. Pole Jams too. Sorry. Um, so I'm not sure anyone would actually even miss this account if I discontinued it entirely. Um, but I do know that there's a select few of you that do love that account. So let me know if I'm wrong on this one. Let me know if you want me to use that more. But you're going to have to contribute content because I'm not really out there searching it anymore. Uh, then the GrindWorks Icehouse account has been dormant since the closure of the Icehouse. And although I've contemplated and joked that the DIY setup I have started at my house as Icehouse V2, I have zero intentions of operating as such and or operating the Instagram account separately from the primary GrindWorks account or even separate from my personal account. I use my personal account, which is, I think everyone probably knows it anyway, Andrew underscore Vargason, for really anything that doesn't fit into the others. So this is like any leftover riding clips, pictures of my family, projects I'm working on, DIY stuff, work stuff, travel photos, generally whatever else I have going on, including the gaming aspect. So that's not even all of them. That's the ridiculous part. I've had access to the HCS Instagram and Facebook for as long as I can remember. As I have lived in Pittsburgh for quite some time now, I find myself more and more detached. Not from HCS in a whole, but like I don't actively use the account because I can't provide adequate or up-to-date answers when anyone sends in a message. So if I would have to reach out to the other person that would answer the account anyway, I'll need to be involved. At one point, I'd helped out Ride PA BMX with some event coverage at Skate 14. So I had that account. I'm pretty sure that I don't anymore. I've got 2 Instagrams that I sometimes manage for work. I don't really keep up on them because, dear Lord, when would I have the time? And they don't expect them to be used. So that also makes life easier. But it's no wonder that I haven't been able to keep up with many of them. Taking all of that into consideration, back to branding. GrindWorks. Where is the line? Right? Like, I haven't really figured it out yet. And is it GrindWorks BMX and GrindWorks Gaming? Is it GrindWorks BMX and GrindWorks AV or .AV or underscore AV or however the heck that needs to go? I don't really know yet. Or do I just create something altogether different that's not GrindWorks at all? That feels like the worst option to me, next to like doing nothing, because right now it just feels like I'm trapped in the fact that I can't adequately tie stuff together, tie my branding together where it needs to be. So like essentially, the problem breaks down simply to my Xbox and Mixer accounts being GrindWorks BMX, and any gaming clips that I would get, I share on Andrew Vargason because most people that follow GrindWorks BMX on any other platform don't freaking care. And anyone that does care can't find me on Instagram because the names don't match. And that's the biggest problem I'm having right now. Somehow on Twitter, the follower base is more gaming related than BMX related, but I think that probably speaks to the broader audience on that platform, and it might just be an anomaly. Uh, Basically, I haven't used it all that much, but there's a lot of gaming stuff that goes on there, so that's probably where it gets used. Anyway, I'm going to continue thinking about this a little bit and get back to it. Not in this episode, but definitely further down the road. I don't know yet what I'm going to do. Either way, I am looking for feedback on this. Whether someone's gone through rebranding themselves or, been in a similar situation where they've kind of overstretched a brand, maybe. Because that's really what this situation is I've taken GrindWorks and ran with it for so long that I never drew a line anywhere. And now I got to figure out where that line should have been and backtrack myself so that I can start pushing other projects and other personal branding that I have going on. But I am torn on that because GrindWorks is my life at this point. Anyway, enough of that point. I've spent a lot of time already talking about that. So let's get on to part 2 of the podcast, which is 2020 jams and also defogging my glasses again. And water. Water's sweet. Okay, so 2020 jams. As you may or may not have already seen or heard, we are doing a series of Insta jams right now. And these were announced in podcast episode 37. I detailed out what's going to be coming. So if you're interested in knowing more than what I have posted on Instagram at the moment, check out podcast episode 37. These are in the format of a simple challenge each week, and they're based on participation rather than doing any sort of best trick type events. It's really easy to say best 360 and then have to come up with some arbitrary judging reason for that. But if I just say, well, that particular week is going to be called Spin to Win. So if I just say spin to win, it doesn't matter if you just learned 180s or if you want to send a 720 whatever. You're all on equal playing field, and it's about getting people together to build on one another's inputs and come up with some really fun and sometimes funny entries. More than just a one person takes all, best trick, blah, blah, blah. I really tried to orient these, Cam and I both tried to orient these to being jams and things that multiple people will win and multiple people will have fun at and not limit participation. So the prize situation is somewhat evolving and will likely remain fairly simple. However, I think you will enjoy participating anyway. This is killing me that these keep fogging up. They have their safety glasses, so they've got like this foam liner and it just keeps holding the sweat in. You didn't even care about that, but whatever. So the Insta-Jam series is not intended to replace the Binghamton and Pittsburgh jams that we have conventionally held. But, and it's a big but, with the current restrictions that are in place due to the coronavirus pandemic and the unknowns for the immediate future, we've put those events on hold. And we're currently using the Insta Jams as a placeholder until we can do something bigger. They're not intended to be a replacement, but they're gonna have to do for now. That's really the gist. So if you want a sneak peek into what's coming, check out episode 37. I've already said that like 3 times. Check out episode 37. Check out episode 37. Check out episode 37. It's short and sweet. It's shorter than this one. It'll tell you pretty much everything you need to know about them. The last thing I really wanted to touch on specifically is something that has been a lingering project for some time now, and it's putting together a GrindWorks DVD. So, this project started out roughly 4, maybe 5 years ago, and since the project's inception, plenty of people that were originally slated to be involved have either moved on, don't talk to us, or don't ride anymore. So for some of them, I have a handful of clips, and I can probably put something together in a friends section for them. And for other people, I was never given anything towards the project. So these people told me that they were 100% in. And then I got crickets. So that's very frustrating as a person that's trying to put this together, and or crew manager or brand owner, if you have to say that. But it doesn't matter what title you give me there. Trying to work on a project and it's not happening. So for other people that have stayed committed to the project, in theory, some of them still never gave me anything. Unless I went out and filmed with them and have the footage myself. So like that's its own level of frustrating. Is like, are you in this or are you not? This has happened time and time again. So I'm sure it's not even just my project. I bet you anyone that works on a video project, this is the common theme. But it doesn't matter because either way, I'm trying to get this handled. So I'm sure that I have enough footage to put a complete video together, but I'm frankly not sure that it's something you guys are going to want to watch. At least not on a DVD format. So I know that that's going to strike a lot of you as odd to hear me say that I don't know that it's worth doing a DVD. Mostly because I value the DVD format. And I could really generally care less about digital releases or edits. In my opinion, when you release a full length as a digital only, it's a glorified edit. There's just no way around it. It's not a DVD. A DVD is a physical item. Going full circle back to the crew versus company discussion, though, and the idea of sponsoring riders, I think the looseness of the GrindWorks crew lends itself to being non-committal, especially regarding projects, and possibly a certain level of being unsure whether someone's clips were truly desired for the project, or if you basically got a pity invite of like, throw me some clips too. Or let's say a pegless rider is like, well, yeah, I know you asked me for clips, but like, you're GrindWorks, right? So none of that matters, dude. None of it matters. It's a crew. It's not a company. So while I haven't made it all the way through labeling and sorting a lot of this footage, I'm somewhat leaning towards just putting this project out as a long edit and, maybe reevaluating where I stand with that and how to pursue the full length DVD project once I get through some more of the sorting and labeling. It's something I really want to do, though. And in some ways, I think dumping the current backlog of footage into a project, such as like a long edit, and then starting fresh again with a solid crew and a solid plan, might work the best to make this happen as a real DVD project. And, it might work the best to inspire motivation among the riders and to keep people focused that, hey, look, there's a project here. Let's do something. Um, some of you listening, watching, people that I might be talking to that I wish would listen or watch, probably have footage for this project. Others may have been those that are no longer involved for a myriad of reasons. I'm interested in everyone's opinion on this, though, because I have not written off the DVD idea. I also have not committed specifically to it being a GrindWorks DVD as opposed to just some independent project that, anyone that may have been unclear or unsure of being a part of GrindWorks or maybe having conflicting sponsors or commitments of some sort, would otherwise be unwilling to participate. So ultimately, your input does matter to me, though, on this. Like, I really want to know what you guys think because the DVD project would rely on you guys to want to buy it, too. Like, if no one wants to buy a GrindWorks project, then it's a lot cheaper for me to just put it online and be like, well, here you go, whatever. I don't really care, right? So, I don't know. But whatever you think, reach out to me. Drop a comment here. Write me a letter if you want. Email me. DM me on Instagram. Whatever works for you. Text me if you have my number. But, just let me know. However you'd like to get in touch, let me know your thoughts. Because I want to do a DVD. I really, really want to do a DVD. But I don't want to waste my time on it. And I already feel like we're so many years in on a project that no one has committed to that I might already be. So, yeah. Anything else? Anything else? Anything else? I do have a couple of notes here, so hang on a second. Let me pull up the other notes. Okay. All right. All right. Let's talk about the GrindWorks store real quick. Some of you may know this, some of you may not, but I already said this earlier. You can reach our website at grindworksbmx.com. You can get to the store by clicking on the store section at the top right of the screen on a desktop browser, or hit the menu button at the top right on a mobile browser and then choose the store option. Our store has all of our current GrindWorks product in stock and available, as well as products from our friends. So this is the part I wanted to talk about. We have Pole Jams 2 stickers, which, whatever. We have BMX as fuck stickers, so here. I didn't have any Pole Jam stickers ready. I failed. Face Tyler stickers. Our wonderful friends at this Instagram. Go check that out if you want to be offended or laugh at Tyler's stupid face. Some personal projects, old throwback stickers that I've specifically removed GrindWorks from. But here, that's an example. So if you're into that, go for it. And then currently adding Keystone brand vinyls. Jash stopped by, dropped off. I don't have the tape off of them yet. But you can kind of see them anyway. This is a reflective gold, and there's a reflective black in here as well. Holographic sparkly Keystone. Yeah, it's nice and fancy. Just gold. There we go. All right. So those will be up soon. Everything else is up. But yeah, basically, we've been adding a whole bunch of people's stuff to the store. I'll get to that in a minute. But if you also want your stuff in the store, just let me know. As opposed to maintaining your own storefront, I can put it in ours. This is kind of like being a distributor for a bunch of what I'm going to call sub tier brands, companies, crews, whatever. Um, but it's basically it's worked well. Instead of having to funnel potential buyers to one, like multiple stores, we can funnel buyers to one place, and once they see the item they are here for, let's say the streetlight pegs, they may also see like a Keystone shirt and the BMX is fuck sticker, and buy a little of everyone's stuff. They might come here for a GrindWorks T-shirt and go, "I actually like that Keystone one better." Well, that's cool. Um, the goal of this has been just to try to get people to come to one place and also support my friends doing cool stuff. So if we're funneling people to 3 or 4 different online stores, someone is going to miss out on sales. Frankly, you're not gonna go to 3 or 4 different sites just because you like these couple cool things that these different people are doing. You're gonna pick one. Um, there's no need to be fighting each other over sales on different websites when we can simplify the experience for the common customer and work together for everyone's sake. And then, that kind of goes to working together to increase sales too for everyone. And that does sound an awful lot. It sounds awful business like, and of course, it is rooted in business, but it's also rooted in promoting what is happening within the scene and hopefully working together to continue doing cool things. All those brands that I mentioned have sponsored our jams in the past and sponsored other cool things, or we've sponsored events they're doing. Like, we're all working together to do cool things for, in those cases, specifically the Pittsburgh scene. But I know dudes like the It's Fine crew and No Worries crew. Like, if you guys want your stuff on the site, send it to me. Let me know. We'll work something out. Anyway, also on news is that we have a vinyl cutter now. So I think a lot of you probably already know that Keystone also has one. And probably know that both of us are open to taking on custom work. So if you have a vinyl decal, hit either of us up. A vinyl decal that you want, hit either of us up. I know Josh has been doing some batches for some people. I've done a couple custom one-offs. I'll recommend you back to my streaming friends. I did one really sick one for Skateric. Um, he's got it on his streaming computer right now, and I think I actually posted a quick clip of it on the GrindWorks Instagram, and you guys probably just didn't know what it was. But it's on a glass case for a PC with the RGB lights behind it, and it looks pretty sick. It has high level of detail too. So anyway, aside from the ability to do some custom work for everyone, this is also going to give us both some creative freedom to do limited runs and special edition stickers and decals. So be on the lookout for limited edition drops from both of us. So this has gotten longer than I anticipated when I was writing it, and I obviously had no way of knowing how long this was going to be to record either, because I didn't proofread it really. So when I was writing this at this point, on and off over the course of a couple of days, we were at like 6 pages and 4,000 words, and I've ad-libbed a lot in here and added stuff, so we're probably well over that. Um, But all right, let me just see what I'm doing here. So I hope that most of this made sense. That's really the gist of what I was trying to get at here. But like, I've hopped around a lot, and I think it did. It made sense when I was reading it out loud, but um, and I mentioned I've never done one of these like this before, so I was a little bit skeptical. Uh, I feel pretty good about it though. So this said, depending on how I feel once this is up, I may consider doing another read and write, or even just a solo episode where I just kind of go. I don't know. I was uncomfortable writing for this, and not so much going into it because it's essentially the exact same as when I just sit down and ramble off an intro or an outro and go for way longer than I should. But anyway, thanks for checking out the episode, and I hope it was enjoyable for you. Curious on any feedback that you guys have. If it's anything like previous episodes, I will be forced to think that it's perfect and that everyone loves it because nobody ever tells me otherwise. I will say shout out to Matt Smith for being about the only consistent person to send me feedback of any sort. It's usually just a quick text or something like, hey, sick episode, liked this part, whatever. But he's about the only one. So anyway, check out his podcast. It's Different Spokes. The different is missing the first E, so it's DIFFRENTSPOKES. And his company is the Yeah. So Matt always has something new in the works. Takes a lot of pride in his workmanship and quality of his products. And I don't have it here. He's been making some limited runs of masks. They're pretty sweet and have a good quality filter in them, unlike some of your cloth masks that everyone is selling that do nothing. They're as close to an N95 as he could produce. Let's put it that way. He has a lot more info on that. He explains it in one of his episodes of his podcast. You can go check that out. You'll be stoked on anything you pick up from him, though. Lots of good work coming out of there, and I'm always stoked on whatever he's got going on. Anyway, back to the sign off. Thanks for checking out the GrindWorks BMX podcast. This was episode 39. It's probably overdue for a solo cast anyway, so yeah, about time. If you're watching this on YouTube, I suck at this part, so this is just really trying to make myself do it. If you're watching this on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment on the video if you so choose. If you're listening on any of the audio-only platforms, such as, and I actually have the list for this because I suck at this one, Anchor, that's who hosts the podcast, but they push it to a bunch of other places. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Stitcher, Overcast, or anywhere else that you may catch this show. Show it some love, leave it a 5-star review, and hit the subscribe button. I believe you can leave a comment on the review too if you so choose. I don't care if you just say I told you to leave a 5-star review. That's cool with me. No matter where you're listening from, make sure you follow at GrindWorks_BMX on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. And then that's at GrindWorks BMX without the underscore on Facebook, TikTok, Mixer, YouTube, Anchor, Xbox, and Steam for now. I will catch you guys next time. Thanks.